If the map hadn't been folded wrong, we never would have taken the Red Pine Trail. 6 of us had hiked together for years. National parks, state forests, even some dumb survival challenge Wes paid for that nearly broke 3 ankles. We weren't amateurs. But that morning at the northern trailhead of Gallatin Preserve, the sign didn't match the online map we'd pulled up the night before. No ranger station. No mileage post. No welcome kiosk with dry-rotted brochures. Just one trail marker. Freshly painted. Red Pine Ridge, 9.3 miles. No history. No reviews. No mention on the park's website. But it was early, cool, and we were in the mood for something less traveled. So we took it. I still remember the first wrong thing. It wasn't the trees, though they were oddly uniform, thin pines packed tightly together, their needles whispering even when there was no wind. It wasn't the ground, though it crunched too loudly underfoot, like walking on hollow bone. It was the silence. There were no birds. Not a single one. No chirps. No leaves rustling. Not even bugs. We joked at first. Called it Red Flag Ridge. Mark cracked open a beer from his hip flask and toasted to the dumbest smart people in the woods. 3 miles in, a thick patch of mist clung to the trail like a veil. That's when Aaron stopped and said, "Do any of y'all remember seeing a ranger station when we pulled in?" We didn't. There should have been one. And that's when we saw him. He was standing 50 feet off the trail, half hidden behind a pine trunk that didn't look thick enough to hide anyone. I don't know how long he'd been watching us. Maybe the whole time. Wide-brimmed ranger hat. Tan shirt tucked into green pants. Standard issue boot. The silhouette was textbook U.S. Forest Service, except for one thing. He wasn't moving. Not leaning. Not shifting. Not even breathing. Wes called out, "Hey! That Red Pine Ridge on the map, or is this like some locals-only trail?" No answer. "Sir," Aaron added, "is this trail marked right?" Still no answer. He just turned and walked away. Not like a guy heading to work. Not even like someone trying to get somewhere fast. He walked like a puppet pulled off stage, shoulders too stiff, arms swaying in unnatural rhythm, legs moving in perfect symmetry. Like someone pretending to walk. A long second passed. Then he disappeared behind the trees. Mark laughed nervously. "I don't like that. Let's pretend that didn't happen." Jess frowned. Why was he out here without a pack? No radio? No water? Aaron was still staring where he'd stood. His badge was on the wrong side. We kept walking, because that's what you do. You pretend you didn't see the thing that didn't make sense. You look at your friends and keep smiling. But we all picked up our pace, and none of us admitted that we started counting our own names in our head, like we were trying to remember them, before someone else did. The fire had died down when I woke up. I didn't sit up fast. I wasn't startled awake. It was something else. A feeling, like a dream I couldn't remember, was trying to finish itself in the dark. The night was thick. Quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that doesn't just hang in the air, it presses on your chest. I turned to my side and looked around. Everyone was in their tent. Erin's lantern cast a weak glow against her nylon wall. Wes's tent was zip-tight. Jess's had her boots neatly outside. All accounted for. Then I heard it. A voice. "Aaron." It was close. Too close. Low, steady. Like a man reading names off a list. Wes. Not shouted. Not whispered. Spoken. Methodical. Precise. "Jessica." My blood went cold. I pushed myself up, slow. My sleeping bag made the slightest rustling sound, and I immediately stopped. I couldn't explain why, but I didn't want whoever was speaking to know I was awake. "Mark." I turned toward the trees. The firelight flickered again, brighter for a second, like someone had stepped too close. "Tyler." That was me. I held my breath. The voice paused. Then said, "Tyler, awake." My lungs froze. Whoever was out there wasn't guessing. He knew. I reached for the flashlight beside me, clicked it on, and saw nothing. Just trees. But the fire was burning higher again, and the hair on my arms was standing straight up. I heard a footstep, then the voice again. Absent, Ethan. Ethan had bolted from the camp around midnight to go take a leak. He hadn't come back. We started searching at first light. Nobody said the word missing. Not yet. Not even when Mark found Ethan's backpack 20 yards from camp. Unzipped, full of his gear, but covered in a fine layer of pine needles like it had been left there for weeks. Jess found something worse. Tracks. But not from Ethan. They were boot prints. Ranger boot. Heavy heel. Smooth sole. No tread. Too perfect. Like someone pressed them into the dirt on purpose. They circled the tent. Twice. Aaron muttered, "Where'd he go to the bathroom again?" We fanned out. Jess and I took the north trail. Wes and Aaron followed a dried creek bed south. Mark stayed behind, saying he wanted to flag the ranger. None of us believed that, but we nodded anyway. We found Ethan's flashlight an hour later. Battery still full. No blood. No sign of a struggle. Just sitting on a log. And stuck into the bark of a nearby tree, 6 feet up, was a ranger badge. Bent, old, tarnished. We called out again. No answer. Wes started yelling. That's when we heard the crunch behind us. Jess spun, holding her phone light high. Just forest. But the crunch came again. Steady. Purposeful. Like boot. She hissed, "Tyler, back to camp." Now. We ran. We didn't talk about the badge when we got back. Didn't talk about the tracks either. Because Mark was gone. His tent was still zipped. His boots were still inside. But the ground around his sleeping bag? Covered in footprints. One set. In a perfect circle. Mark was the kind of guy who wouldn't leave camp without his watch, his boots, or his obnoxiously large thermos. All 3 were still where he left them. His sleeping bag was zipped. I opened it. Empty. Neatly made. Like no one had ever slept in it. No one said a word for the next half hour. We just gathered more firewood, rebuilt the stone ring, and lit the flames again. A task to stay busy. A ritual to hold us together. By nightfall, the silence was thick as bark. Jess was the first to say it. "We need to hike out." At first light. Aaron nodded. "If it's a ranger screwing with us, I'm reporting it." "If it's not," she didn't finish. Wes said nothing. Just stared into the fire. His knuckles were white around his knees. I wanted to say we were all just tired. That the Red Pine Ridge Trail probably wasn't even official. That maybe some squatter out here found a uniform and was trying to scare campers. But my stomach kept turning. Because when I looked into the flames, I saw names. They flickered in and out like heat mirages. First Jess, then Wes, then me. Carved in ash. As the fire cracked, the names repeated aloud. In our own voices. Like an echo from somewhere deeper in the woods, bouncing back to us through the flames. And then we heard the last name. Mark. But it wasn't in his voice. It was in mine. He came just before dawn. We were still up, still staring at the embers like they might spell out an exit plan. We heard crashing in the brush. Not sneaky. Not stealthy. Desperate. Feral. He stumbled into camp like a deer shot in the lung. Tan ranger shirt. Forest green pants. Blood soaked the fabric down his right leg and around his ribs. His hat was gone. His face was pale, almost waxy. His eyes didn't track right. He fell into the dirt face first. Wes jumped up, flipped him over. "Hey, Ranger? Can you hear me?" The man coughed. Blood spilled over his lips. But when he looked at us, he smiled. Are you the rescue team?" Jess asked. He shook his head. Then twitched, full body like a seizure. That's when we saw the stitches. A seam ran from his ear down under his collarbone. Aaron leaned in to check his pulse. The skin at his jaw shifted. Pulled. Then peeled. Like a mask stretched too far. Beneath it was something else. Something gray and thin and glistening. No skin. No flesh. No muscle. Like a puppet made of wet bark and sinew. Wes scrambled back. "That's not a man." The ranger tried to speak. No words. Just sound. It came out like our names pressed through broken teeth. Tyler, Aaron, Jessica, Wes. Then he convulsed, twitched again, and the stitched skin split apart down the spine. The ranger body collapsed inward like an empty costume. No blood left behind. No bones. Just a uniform. And a Forest Service badge. Upside down. None of us moved for a solid minute. The thing that used to be a ranger, used to look like a ranger, lay half-folded near the fire pit like a costume dropped on Halloween night. The uniform didn't deflate like cloth. It caved like pressure was pulling from inside. Like something had exited it backward. Wes stepped forward slowly and nudged it with a stick. It didn't twitch. The head lolled unnaturally, as if it had no skull inside. The stitched seam at the neck had split wide open. The skin, what we'd thought was skin, was rubbery underneath, with what looked like sap or glue around the mouth and eyes. Jess stared, frozen. It was wearing someone. No, Aaron whispered. It was becoming someone. I crouched and looked closer. The stitching wasn't with thread, it was fibers from pine bark. And the jaw had no teeth, just thin, pink ridges like gum lines carved into wood. There was no blood, no muscle, no smell of death, just the faint odor of burnt cedar and something sour, like spoiled varnish. We didn't speak again until sunrise. The fire turned to ash and the shadows thinned, but the woods didn't warm. Not like they should have. That's when I realized I couldn't remember the sun rising. 1 minute it was black. The next, light had crept in. Not over us, around us. Wes was the first to say it out loud. We have to find a real ranger. A real one. A station. A radio. Something. Jess didn't argue. But Aaron just looked at the shredded uniform. And said, if there was a real ranger, where is he now? We packed up camp in silence. None of us wanted to say the word leave like it might jinx it. We didn't roll up tents, we abandoned them. I didn't even grab my canteen. Just my pack, my knife, and the compass Jess carried on her belt, even though we all had GPS on our phones. All our phones had gone black. Not dead. Not drained. Just black. Even the screens looked wrong. Too matte like fake props. When I pressed the power button, the surface rippled. Just slightly. Like it was made of skin. We moved west, retracing the trail as best we could, but everything had changed. The trail markers were gone. Or rather, replaced. What had been yellow arrows the day before were now crude slashes in the bark, red as rust and bleeding down the trunks like wounds. After an hour, we came to a clearing marked with stacked stones. And there, half buried beneath them, was a body. It took everything I had not to scream. The corpse wore the same ranger uniform. The same boot, the same upside-down badge. But this one had no head. And the chest was torn open like something had clawed out from the inside. There was a name tag still attached, half melted. R. Calder. Wes knelt, shaking. This is a crime scene. This is murder. We need cops. Helicopters. We need to get out. Jess grabbed his arm. Look. Under the body, tucked in the dirt like it had been buried deliberately, was a Polaroid photo. It showed 6 people standing in front of a ranger station. All smiling. One of them was me. But I didn't remember the picture being taken. And the 6th person? Wasn't Mark. It was the ranger who collapsed in our fire circle. The one who bled bark. Wes burned the photo. I tried to stop him. I told him we needed it. Proof, evidence, something tangible, but he didn't listen. He held it over the fire pit from the night before and dropped it in. It curled at the corners and blackened fast, the flames swallowing the 6 smiling faces. One of them mine. One of them not. Jess watched it burn with clenched fist. Aaron didn't even look. What if we're on a different trail now? I asked. Like, what if Red Pine loops into another trail system? No, Aaron said. It's not a trail anymore. It's a trap. We walked fast. West again, because it was the only direction that felt solid. The ground sloped down. The trees leaned in. The air grew warmer, thicker. And then the markers changed again. They weren't symbols anymore. They were letters, scrawled in red, dripping like blood, first on bark, then on stones, then, horribly, on tree trunks carved into flesh that wasn't wood. Letters shaped into 2 words. 5 remaining. Jess stopped walking. It knows how many of us there are. We think it knows, Wes said, but his voice was hollow. Maybe it's bluffing. Aaron leaned down beside a marker and sniffed it. That's not paint. The coppery sting hit my nose next. It was blood. And whatever wrote it had fresh supply. By dusk we gave up trying to find our cars. The terrain made no sense. Hills we swore we'd climbed were behind us again. A dried creek bed reappeared on the wrong side. At one point we passed our own abandoned tent camp, but all the tents were zipped again like they'd been reset. None of us even had the nerve to check if our names were inside. We set up new camp around a boulder formation and agreed on shift. Jess took the first watch. I took the second. Wes said he'd take third. Aaron volunteered for dawn. We kept the fire small. None of us wanted to see names in the flames again. I woke up to Aaron shaking me hard. Jess is gone. It took me a second to register. Her boots were still by the fire, standing upright, lined up perfectly side by side. Wes was still in his bag, but trembling. I don't think he ever slept. Did you see anything? I asked. Aaron shook her head, frantic. No. But the fire flared. Then it went cold. Like it was breathing backward. I looked at Jess's boots again. Her footprints ended right there. Like she'd walked out of herself. Or been peeled out of her clothes. On the log where she'd sat for her shift, there was a new carving. Letters burned into the wood. 4 remaining. I don't remember sitting down. Or breathing. Or saying anything at all. Because that was the moment I realized something. It wasn't just killing us. It was counting. We left at dawn again. No breakfast. No words. No plan. Just fear. Jess was gone. Her boots still stood where we left them. The log where she'd sat now bore not just a count, but a carving of her name. Jagged. Burned into the bark. Misspelled just slightly, like a copy made by someone who didn't quite understand letters. It said, Jessica. Wes wanted to go back to the ranger's body, dig deeper. See if there was a clue in that split chest, something sewn inside. Aaron wanted to find a clearing big enough for a signal flare, except we had no flares. No phone service. Nothing real left. I didn't want to go anywhere. I just wanted to sit, to hold still, to not be noticed. But we went anyway. 3 ghosts moving through trees, feet crunching too loudly on a path that didn't belong to us. That's when we saw him. He stood in the middle of the trail. Another ranger. Same uniform. Same upside-down badge. But he didn't move. Didn't breathe. Didn't blink. And when we called out, he repeated our words back to us. Word for word. Tone for tone. Like a tape recorder. Aaron, who are you? Ranger, who are you? Wes, where's our friend? Ranger, where's our friend? Me, you're not real. The ranger tilted his head and said, flatly, you're not real. Then it smiled, slowly, too wide, like its skin wasn't meant for it. And the smile split open. Not the lips, the cheeks. Like bark tearing under strain. We rushed him. He didn't resist. We pinned him to the dirt, and that's when I saw it up close. His teeth were carved wood. No tongue. No throat. Just empty dark. We tied him up with rope from Wes's pack. 5 minutes later, he deflated. Not melted. Deflated. Folded in on himself like a balloon losing air. By the time we turned him over, gone. There was a journal in the dirt where the ranger had stood. Wrapped in oilskin. Half burned. It wasn't there before. Wes picked it up, hands shaking. First page. Those who enter Red Pine Ridge without invitation will be replaced. Second page. They don't find you. They become you. Slowly. From the inside out. Third page. A list of names. Dozens. Some scratched out. Some fresh. Mine was on the last line. Tyler Ash. underlined in red. Wes found his a few rows up. Aaron's wasn't there yet, but Jess's was scratched out. And Mark's. And Ethan's. That's when Aaron started sobbing. They didn't just take them, she whispered. They rewrote them. We sat there for an hour, maybe more. None of us knew what to do. We were deep inside something ancient and patient and practiced. A trap not made with teeth, but with roles and names and rules. And that's when Wes whispered, "They're not hunting us. We were called." What? They knew our names. The fake ranger called roll on the first night. That wasn't coincidence. That was a script. They already had us cast. Aaron pointed to the horizon. Then let's ruin the script. Let's get off the stage. I agreed. But even then, I could feel something watching. Not from the trees. From inside me. Waiting for its cue. It took us 3 more hours to find the building. A squat log structure in a dead clearing with no grass, no birds, no sounds. Like sound had been vacuumed out. The trees ended in a perfect circle 30 feet from the post, too perfect, like they'd been cut away. No overgrowth, no pine cones. The dirt wasn't just cleared, it was raked. There were no windows. Just a wooden door with a dull brass knob and a sign overhead. Gallatin North Station, closed for season. But the door was unlocked. Wes went in first, hands shaking around the handle of the camp hatchet he'd carried since the second day. Aaron followed, gripping the journal like a Bible. I came last because I didn't want to be first, and I didn't want to be last. Inside, it was darker than it should have been. No power. No windows. No furniture, except a desk with a filing cabinet behind it and a wall of lockers, all of them bolted shut with rusted chains. There were no signs of life. Just photos pinned to the wall. They were all Polaroid. Dozens of them. Campers. Smiling. Holding up peace signs, gear, flashlights. A few in mid-hike. Some sitting by fires. All wearing hats. Ranger hats. Aaron stepped closer. Each photo had a name below it. Half were ours. But the faces didn't match. Tyler. Mark. Ethan. Jessica. Strangers. Wes pointed to the middle locker. Painted across the metal in red spray. Last replacement complete. He reached for the handle anyway. It swung open without resistance. Inside was a uniform. A ranger uniform. Folded perfectly. My name tag was pinned to the front. We backed out. Fast. Aaron shoved the locker closed with a slam. Nope. No. Not happening. We're not part of this. Wes was already pacing. We have to burn it. The photos. The uniforms. This whole post. I nodded. Anything to break the pattern. Anything to write our own ending. But before we could move, we heard it. Footstep. Outside. Heavy, slow. Boot. Then a knock at the door. 3 short raps. U.S. Forest Service, a voice called. Ranger McLean. You folks reported a disappearance. It sounded human. Too human. Like a voice sample used in every safety PSA you've ever heard. Smooth. Measured. Pleasant. Back door. I whispered. Wes checked, there wasn't one. No back window. No vents. Just 4 walls, the door, and that locker full of someone who wanted to be me. Ranger McLean, the voice said again. I see 3 backpacks, but I was told 4 visitors entered the preserve. He wasn't counting the lost. He was counting the remaining. The knob turned. We hadn't locked it. Wes lunged and jammed his shoulder against the door. I'm not letting it in. I'm here to help, the voice said. There's a storm coming. You'll be safer with me. Aaron shouted, We're not on your list. Silence. Then, from just beyond the door, we heard it say, in Jess's voice. I found them. They're all here. My stomach dropped. I looked back at the photo wall. My picture had changed. The smile was mine now. But the eyes weren't. And beneath it, in fresh ink. One remaining. Wes held the door until his arms shook. Aaron paced, gripping the journal tighter with every breath. I stared at my photo on the wall like it was ticking, like it would blink. Outside, silence. No boot. No breathing. No false voices. Just the sound of the wind in the trees, only there weren't any trees this close. The clearing had no wind. No sway. No breath. Wes finally eased back. He's gone. Aaron looked at me. You saw it, didn't you? I nodded. My photo. On the wall. Smiling. A picture I'd never taken. A caption I never wrote. One remaining. But that didn't make sense. There were still 3 of us. Me. Aaron. Wes. Aaron's voice broke. Tyler, say my name. What? Say my name. The real one. All of it. Aaron, I paused. Aaron Moslow. She breathed out. Good. Your turn. Tyler Ash. Wes didn't speak. He stood in the corner, staring at the locker. Wes. Aaron said. He didn't turn. Wes. He looked at me. Then her. Then the journal. My last name's not in there. I opened the book again. He was right. Jessica. Mark. Ethan. Me. Aaron. But not Wes. He smiled. And it was wrong. Too slow. Too wide. Aaron stepped back. What's your sister's name, Wes? He said nothing. What's your sister's name? He blinked. Then whispered. You already called roll. Wes lunged. Not fast, but off. Like a string had been pulled behind his ribs and yanked forward. Aaron threw the oilskin journal in his face and I grabbed a chair, the only thing not bolted down, and swung. He hit the floor hard, but there was no blood. No groan. Just a split at the corner of his mouth. A seam. Aaron screamed. I backed away. Wes twisted on the floor like a puppet unwinding, and from inside, somewhere beneath the skin, a voice began to crawl out. Tyler. Aaron. Missing Jessica. Aaron shouted. He was gone days ago. It's been watching us through him. The mouth peeled wider. And then the laughing started. It wasn't Wes's laugh. It was mine. Mocking. Echoed. Warped. I grabbed the chair again. Slammed it down. Again. Again. Until the skin deflated. Not torn. Not broken. Just vacated. When it was done, the room was still. The body was flat. No bones. No blood. Just fabric and an empty mask of Wes's face, mouth parted in a last breath that never happened. We stood there shaking. 2 of us left. But the wall now read. 0 remaining. 0 remaining, I whispered. The words burned behind my eyes, like I'd read them before. Not just on the wall, but in a place deeper. Older. In me. Aaron stared, mouth trembling. That's not right. We're still here. I nodded, but the wall didn't change. Still 0 remaining. The air in the ranger station shifted. Like a pressure drop before a storm. The wooden floorboards groaned, not from movement but from memory. The photographs on the wall rippled. Literally rippled. Like pond water. One by one, the faces in them changed. Our photos reappeared, but slightly different. My eyes were too wide. Aaron's smile too long. Wes's image reformed itself, but his body stood wrong, hips twisted at an impossible angle. Aaron backed away from the wall like it might swallow her. They're not just copying us. I shook my head. They're trying to convince us that we're the copies. I moved toward the locker. The one with the ranger uniform inside. My name tag still attached. But now the tag read, T. Ash approved. And below it, in smaller red type, was something new. Now available for wear. The inside lining of the uniform had changed too. It wasn't cloth anymore. It was skin. Not human, something tougher. Almost like bark smoothed into hide. Stitched with pine fibers. It pulsed faintly. As if breathing. Aaron grabbed my arm. If you put it on, you're not you anymore. I wasn't planning on it. But the longer I looked at it, the more I felt it looking back. We should have run. But we didn't. Instead, Aaron flipped open the journal again. There was a final page. Just a single question. If you're not the last one, then who is? The lights overhead flickered. Even though we knew there weren't any. There'd never been power. But for a moment, the room was bathed in a cold, blue-white glare. And we saw shadows that didn't match us. One too many. 3 shapes. 2 people. I turned. No one behind us. The lights went out. Dark again. Erin held up her phone, dead. Mine? Also dead. But the uniform still glowed faintly in the dark. A pulse. Like a beacon. Or a heartbeat. Why us? Erin asked. Why these names? This place? I didn't have an answer. But the uniform shifted. A fold near the collar uncurled. Beneath it was a badge. A new one. It didn't say U.S. Forest Service. It said, Warden. And beneath that, Identity accepted. I stepped back. The room felt tighter. The floorboards closer. The shadows more real. Then I saw Erin's photo on the wall start to blur. Her face stretched sideways, morphing into something else. The edges of her mouth curled up unnaturally. She screamed. And the wall whispered. One remaining. Erin clawed at the wall, trying to rip the photo down, but her fingers passed right through it. Her face, her twisted, uncanny face, looked back at her, smiling wider with every second. Cheeks stretched. Eyes going cloudy. Tyler, do I look like that to you? She cried. I looked at her. Really looked. And no, she didn't. But something about the air around her was changing. The edges of her body shimmered faintly. Like the light couldn't remember how to land on her. Like the forest was starting to draw over her. I'm still me, she screamed. I believed her. But the wall didn't. It pulsed again. One remaining. It had lied before. Said 0. Now it was correcting itself. I spun toward the door. We're leaving. Now. Erin didn't argue. We burst out of the ranger station into the death-silent clearing. No birds. No wind. Just thick, still air and the sound of our boots slamming into packed dirt. The forest stood like a wall of bark and shadow. And then it opened. Trees bent ever so slightly, making a narrow path. A trail we hadn't seen before. Just wide enough for one. I didn't care. We ran into it. Branches clawed. Roots grabbed. The path turned uphill. Then dipped down into a ravine. The forest behind us snapped shut. I didn't look back. Erin didn't either. Until we passed a tree with a carved sign nailed to it. Burned into the wood. No exit in uniform. We kept going. That's when I noticed something. The sound of footsteps behind us. A third pair. Erin looked at me. I looked at her. We didn't say a word. We just ran harder. The trees finally broke. A road. Cracked pavement. Telephone wires overhead. A dented green sign that read, Red Pine Ridge, maintenance access only. I fell to my knees. Erin dropped beside me, gasping. We made it. Somehow we made it. But the sun was all wrong. It didn't rise from the east. It hovered straight above us, unmoving. Like a spotlight, not a sun. And it cast no shadows. No bugs. No birdsong. No world beyond the sign. I turned to Erin. She wasn't breathing hard anymore. She just stared at me. And said flatly, You wore it. I blinked. What? She stepped closer. The uniform. You put it on. I didn't. Yes, you did. She reached toward my chest. And my hand moved reflexively to brush her away, only I felt it then. Fabric. Stiff. Starched. I looked down. At my own chest. And saw the badge. Warden. I hadn't put it on. I hadn't. I never would. But it was on me now. The forest had dressed me on the way out. Erin backed away. You're not you anymore. I am. Then take it off. I tried. I reached for the collar and pulled. And felt bark. The skin under it wasn't mine anymore. I looked at my arms. Too long. My hands. Fingers like twigs. Erin sobbed. I thought we both made it out. We stood in silence at the edge of the road. Until headlights crested the hill. A ranger truck. Real this time. Real tires. Real dust. 2 men inside. They stopped. Rolled down a window. You folks all right? The driver asked. Erin nodded. I stepped forward. The man looked me over. Eyes narrowed. He saw the badge. My badge. He saluted. Didn't know they sent a warden. I tried to speak. My voice cracked, echoed. Too many voices in one.